morning, everybody. Today is our official kickoff to our Femoral 2.0 development information session. So for those of you who are wondering what is Femoral 2.0, we will explain that to everybody and even tell you what Femoral 1.0 was and how it's going to progress to Femoral 2.0. We do have a series of slides that we're going to go through, basically walking you through some terminology, some information on how you can get involved, and then we will open it up to any questions, comments that you may have towards the end of the session. So without further ado, I'm going to move to the next slide. So here is our agenda. So today we're going to start with some, a little bit of a welcome from Dr. Seal, who will kick off sort of the presentation here today, kind of as it's traditionally Femoral 1.0 has been an education tool, and now we're going to make Femoral 2.0 an education tool plus. So we'll explain what those pluses are as the presentation goes on. And then we're going to kind of frame the project as, what is Femoral and, compare it to what are some of the new capabilities we're looking to program into this feature going forward. Give you a little bit of a project outline, and then what are the next steps that you can take as stakeholders of the project. And then we'll have a Q&A. For those who are wondering how or what you are as a stakeholder, that's anybody that could have any sort of involvement, impact, or say in basically the use of Femoral or its use could impact anything that you do on a day-to-day basis. So to kind of give us the rah-rah and the cheer, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ed Seal, who will give us our big kickoff and, hopes and dreams as the champion for this project. So.
I think we just need to unmute Dr. Seal. I don't know, Kendra, if you're...
There he is.
There we go.
Okay.
there's a little trick. I think my wife would like to mute me sometimes, and she can't. So you guys have figured it out. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I think I know most of you here. I'm Ed Seal. I'm the program director for family medicine, and I was asked to present and maybe, as Jeff says, do the rah-rah, which I think is a great description of what my role is here, I think. I think the other thing is when we talk about framing, and I think Jeff is going to talk about this in more depth about what framing of the program, of what the Femoral program is and what this is all about. I think what I'd like to do is bring this down to my perspective and why this is important, and not so much where this is going. Jeff is going to be excellent at that, and the rest of the team is going to be talking about where this is going, but what this is and where it came from. And in other words, what is it? What relevance does it have to me and my colleagues, the residents and the preceptors, and certainly any learner that touches this program in any way? And that includes admin and other people who touch learners and touch the future of the development of family medicine residents. So just briefly, I want to say, I was kind of here at the beginning, even though I had nothing to do with it, I was kind of here at the beginning of Femoral 1.0 because I've been attached to the Department of Family Medicine since 2005. And it was clear that more IT solutions needed to be done for many things. So what Femoral has been involved with, or Femoral has been involved with to date, is things like scheduling, vacation requests. And for me, one of the things that's most important is the electronic field notes. So for the residents, any residents or staff, preceptors on the call, they recognize the importance of evaluating their progress through the real innovation that was the electronic field note, very important tool, which allowed us to track and follow feedback that was provided to our learners and to sort of show how that would progress as time went on. And this was crucial for the development and the support of our learners. But so were all the other things that were very near and dear to the hearts: their scheduling, their vacation requests, issues around their research, et cetera, et cetera. So it was an incredible tool, and it was new and innovative and all the things that were important years ago. But what's become clear, I guess, over the last few years is that it's original importance has become affected by its inherent and what is normal lack of flexibility. So things need to be changed, things need to be updated, and when you have a structure as well utilized and I guess put in place as Femoral, it is hard to sometimes be innovative. And I'll just give you a couple of examples of, from my perspective, how I think that has affected our department to a certain extent. And one of them is our SIPRs, and those of you who are aware of what those are, they're actually accreditation requirements. And that has to do with our regular reviews of our residents, bringing up all elements of their evaluation, where we sit down and we do, it's like a mentorship meeting with our residents. So with our learners, we sit down and we take disparate parts of their evaluation processes, and we review them with them, and we make plans for the future. Well, part of the problem is our admin, it takes anywhere between about 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes longer, to gather that information from different areas, where they have to do it manually. And that's quite a large time that if that were done in a more kind of streamlined IT solutioned way, it would be a lot more effective for everybody. So that's just one example of where I think it has a relevance to all of us sitting down at the table today, and how we can support our learners through an enhanced but similar system. The other thing would be issues with transferring paper data to the electronic world. And I had some issues with that when I was the community director prior to this particular role, in which we had an information sheet that we'd always wanted to get onto into an electronic format, but it was a little bit more complicated because there was always something else more pressing in the queue. So because it was a complicated thing to make changes, it always got pushed back until now that I'm the program director, it still hasn't been done. So these are things that if things were a little bit more, and I guess the term is nimble, we've been using a lot of the term nimble during the pandemic, it would be great. And so this is where an enhanced IT solution would be wonderful. And thirdly, I guess the issues around innovation. Wouldn't it be great if we had the ability to lock on, like Lego, enhanced modular solutions? So from my perspective, this has been a wonderful tool. It's done us an incredible service over the years. And I think what we're talking about and what we're going to go here is say, this is something that's very relevant to our learners. It has been very effective. And now we want to improve it and enhance it in very important structural ways. So I think that gives you a sense of where we are and how we got here to why we're talking about this stuff today and why it's so important from my perspective. And I think that's important. It's from my perspective, but there'll be many other perspectives you'll hear this morning. And I'm going to turn this back over to Jeff to leave the rah-rah to more of the details. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Seal. That's a great introduction because, and you touched on some very important parts because, as Dr. Seal mentioned, SIPRs can be a very frustrating event. I know, having spoken with some of the different coordinators, that, if you're really, really good, very, very familiar with Femoral, it could still take you 20 minutes to do one. And when you've got, 70 plus to do, I could see myself pulling my hair. Well, not pulling my hair, but it's not long enough and I don't have enough. But unfortunately, some of the folks that do could do that. And as Dr. Seal had mentioned, Femoral has been around for 10 plus years, has served admirably the department. Unfortunately, everybody like us does need a retirement date eventually. And in the technology world, 10 plus years is a very admirable time to be in support. So it is time to find that next generation tool. We did conduct basically an environmental scan of what is out there. We worked with our partner at MedTech to come up with looking at different solutions. We did evaluate a couple what they call commercial off-the-shelf solutions, or COTS, that are currently in use by different schools here in Canada to manage either family medicine or medicine programs. And what we did find out is while they were using them, they still had a requirement to maintain 1 to 2 software engineers on staff to deliver the full solution. So it just did not make sense to both pay the commercial licenses for these commercial off-the-shelf solutions and then also have to pay for developers on staff to, build a full solution. So, we're going back to our roots 10 years ago and redeveloping. We're going to use Femoral 1.0 as kind of our anchor point. It has done a great job in managing our learners up to this date. So, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to rewrite the program in a new modern language and then enhance it. And then, of course, add new functionality to it. So some of you, as Dr. Seal had mentioned, what is Femoral 1.0? So some of you, depending on your role within the department, will see one of these 3 different screens. Basically, if you're a faculty member, you'll see the green screen where you'll be able to log in and get different information about a resident. And then, of course, if you're a resident, you'll log in, you see the red screen. And then, of course, if you're administrative staff, you'll see the blue screen. Each one does present some different features and functionality that we will be replicating in the new system. And then, of course, reevaluating what is in those different sections and, enhancing it or making it better for everybody and making it a little bit more seamless. So right now we're going to frame the project. So basically, what is Femoral 2.0? So it's, as we mentioned, it's going to be Femoral 1.0, maybe on steroids or, enhanced. And then it's going to be a replacement of our existing capabilities, but, with additional functionality that we'll get to in a little bit. But as Dr. Seal mentioned, he put forward and expressed, his vision for, this project, and that's his view. We want everybody's view. We want everybody's suggestions, desires for the program. We can't say that everybody's wish list will be incorporated. We will basically take everybody's suggestions into consideration. However, just like anything and everything today, not everybody can win and get their thing in, but you will be heard, and you will be, if we do select it, it will be included. If we take your suggestion and just doesn't fit in the application, we will communicate that back to you. Or if it does, if it's a great idea, but it does actually render or actually result in more work, we'll ask you to please, maybe find a better way to do it or rethink what you'd like it to do. And if we find a way to do it while minimizing and making it more effective, we'll go with that. So what is Femoral 1.0? So as we mentioned, for those that are on the administrative staff, you have a resident portal, a preceptor portal, you have a leave of absence, e-field notes, SUs, or simulated offers, orals, and CARMs. If you don't see something in there, it's probably because it's built into a function of other modules, i.e. zippers, etc., or reporting. So what is Femoral 2.0? As you can see, all the modules that are currently in 1.0 will map over to the new Femoral 2.0. And there are some additional new capabilities, which will be talent management, FMRSP, research and finance that will be built in. One of the other enhancements we're looking to make with Femoral 2.0 is right now our current system is designed to be a post-grad resident management system. And now we're actually going to increase it to potentially have the capability to include undergrads, because we do have an undergrad capability and functionality within our team, and we don't want to overlook that. So one of the things you'll notice is that we'll be actually rebranding the resident portal to the learner portal, because it's not a resident if it's an undergrad. So while residents and undergrads are learners, it's going to become the learner portal. The preceptor will also be rebranded to the faculty portal, just because not all faculty members are preceptors at any given time. However, they are still our faculty, and we want to make sure that we do have them included. And those faculty members will have a component of talent management related to them, so we want to make sure we address them. Leave of absence is still going to be leave of absence, and e-field notes is still going to be e-field notes. So as you can see, there is a capability. Then as you see, learners, faculty, and leave of absence are circled because one of my sort of goals when I was brought into the department was, hey, let's see if we can find a better way of doing scheduling in more of an automated fashion. Each of the unit coordinators does a fantastic job of manually managing schedules and very complex, very colorful, pretty Excel spreadsheets, which, has been working for a long time, but can be extremely laborious and extremely time intensive. And require a lot of monitoring and checking. And, my experience working with Excel spreadsheets, inevitably one does get corrupted, and we don't want that. So we're going to be looking to build scheduling into the whole thing. And then when it comes to developing a SIPR, you're going to be touching on a couple different portals, both resident e-field notes and inevitably Elantra or 145, which is our evaluation database that resides at the faculty level. So we'll be looking at seeing if we can develop an API or a connector with the Elantra/145 database, allowing you to hit, basically go in and select, I want to generate a SIPR on a resident. You put their name in and it goes and pulls all the relevant data into a template, pre-formatted template, and there you go. It's done instead of in 20 minutes to 60 minutes in 20 seconds. So that is a big goal of ours. So we look at the project outline. So basically, here's our project team. So there's myself speaking here. You've got Dr. Seal, who's our project champion, because at the end of the day, the focus for Femoral right now, and the focus of the department is on the education pillar of our strategic plan. So we will be focusing on the delivery of the core, as we call it today, and we'll explain what the core is in just a moment. We have Marissa, who's our project manager, managing everything. We have Natalia, who's our first developer. We are
Hello.
Currently still sourcing and seeking out another one. We have Kendra, who has been instrumental in pulling together all of our information and tracking everything. So she's going to be managing basically the entire project, working with Marissa. We have Ali, who is our other developer in the department, who currently oversees all of the innovation projects we're working on, but will be also involved in ensuring that he knows what is going on. We'll be doing some peer review, some QA. And you know what? You can't develop a brand new application without making it look pretty and look, snazzy and all that. And that's what we have Oksana here, who's our UX UI design specialist. So anybody's been to any of our major events, she's been instrumental in putting that wow and pizzazz into our different graphics. And then we will also be adding some co-op students this fall. So once the development is underway and we're, right into it, we'll be then adding some co-op students to continue that development and offer up some additional support to the development team. So the project outline. So you may or you may not hear us at different times and different presentations mention some different project lingo. So I'm going to try to break it down for you. So if, for those that are familiar with project language, project charter, that's basically the governing document. It's basically who is involved, what are the rules of the game, what's in and what is out. So in medical language, that would be probably the patient's chart. So if you were to think of project charter, patient chart, that's probably the one-to-one mapping. Everything doesn't happen. If it's not in there, it doesn't happen. So so think of that. Stakeholders, I kind of alluded to at the beginning, that's anybody that could actually use the system, be a benefactor of its outputs, or could have an impact on the use of the system. So for example, central IT or medtech. So anybody that basically inside and out that touches can be a result of a touch to the system, its implementation, and could be considered a stakeholder. So now we get to what we call learner management system. So at some point in time, you may have heard of a learning management system called Brightspace. This is not Brightspace. The learner management system is actually what this entire system will be. We are looking to manage our cadre or cohorts, I think we sometimes call them, of undergrad and residents or postgrad residents. So that is what, in the vernacular of what Femoral 2.0 would be, is a learner management system. We're managing the education of these students. And how do you manage them? Well, you have to know who your teachers are. So those are your faculty members, and then all of their schedules, etc., making sure they have all their credentials. The development of the software will be done using what we call the Agile framework. That is a software development framework. So you don't need to know any more than that, but it's a new method that is very popular in the software development life cycle. And then sprints are a component of the Agile framework. think of a sprint as a moment, basically a set moment in time. So if I were to relate it to the medical world, say, I'm going to prescribe you this medication to see if this will bring your blood pressure down. We're going to try it for 3 weeks, and then you're going to come back. We're going to see its outputs. That is what a sprint is. It's basically a set amount of time, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. And at the end of those 2 to 4 weeks, you'll actually have an output. So every 2 to 4 weeks, the team will resolve a sprint, and they'll actually have a piece of code that can be viewed. So every 4 weeks or so, the team will be sitting down and saying, we are going to develop these features and functionalities. And then at the end of the 4 weeks, you'll actually be able to see what was developed. And of course, risks are risks. You can't do anything these days without, mitigating or acknowledging there are risks to every project. And so we will be addressing those. We'll be monitoring those and trying to mitigate as much as possible. So what is the development path? So you heard me mention the word core. So what is core? Core is the learner portal, previously known as the resident portal, the faculty portal, previously known as preceptors, field notes, and leave. So that is our goal by July 1st of next year to deliver these core capabilities. Within that you'll have FMRSP, SIPRs, and SUs we built into what we call the core. So that's a one-to-one replacement of Femoral 1.0 to Femoral 2.0. Then we will progress over to scheduling. And then the residual piece would be talent management, research, and finance. Now, when we're developing the core, we will actually be considering and taking into consideration any impacts that this may have on scheduling. So, we have to add some fields to the existing core. So when we go to develop scheduling, we have to go back to the core, add these. So we will be taking all these different considerations. So when you do see the delivery of core, you may see some additional functionality that may not work at the time because it's reserved for the future implementation of an additional module. Next, we have our estimated timeline. So of course, we are here today. We are all gathered here today to kick off this project with a preliminary, and then by June 10th, which is 1 month from today, to have the majority of our requirements gathered for the core. Now, that might seem like a little bit of a short timeline, but we are familiar with the core because we've all been using it for at least 5 minutes, but up to 10 years if we've been here long enough. So we know what a lot of the requirements are, but we do want to also receive feedback from the non-users of the core. So, anybody that's an external stakeholder, we will be sitting down reviewing the different requirements for the core, and it'll be ongoing. I mean, we're not going to stop and say post June 10th, sorry, we're not accepting any more feedback. We will be taking feedback right through the 10th, compiling it, assessing it, and basically putting it into our backlog as items to be developed. And then the team is going to continue to develop. And as more stuff comes in, they'll be evaluated, whether it be put into future sprints that will be determined. With the goal of having, our very first sprint and executable code by July 8th. And then every 4 weeks after that, you'll be able to see what we call iterative development. So every 4 weeks, you'll actually see the program progress. And each time, like, oh, I saw it had a pink screen and 3 boxes. 4 weeks later, you'd be able to see there's 12 boxes. And the next week, you'd be able to see there's 500 boxes. With the goal, it's still flexible at this time to have the core completed by roughly around the end of April. So we could then turn it over for assessment by central IT and security. So they could spend, a couple months reviewing the deliverable, making sure it meets all the criteria. Now, when I say that the final product we deliver, this will also be an iterative process. We will not wait. We will continue to involve and engage the different members of the infrastructure technology department and medtech on the development of products. So we don't have to just say, here it is done. And they say, well, you have to completely rewrite it because you didn't factor this in. We will always be maintaining that relationship with IT to make sure that, we're in compliance. We may have to make the course correction. It's a lot easier to do that within a 2 to 4 week sprint versus, 9 months down the road. With the goal to have the core go live for our next cohort of students, which is July 1st of 2023. I goal of ours. So the schedule will continue to evolve as Kendra and Marissa really sort of finesse it, and the dev team stand up and find out how much they could actually deliver in each sprint. But that's our current target date, is to have the core ready to go by July 1st next year, in support of our accreditation review that goes in, which is 2024. So. Oh, yes, and Kim Rozon is also part of the team as well. So don't, as she's leading sort of the education component of the core. So she's key to making sure that the core is delivered to meet the needs of her team right now. So Ed is the champion. We call Kim the co-champion of it from the education silo perspective. And then we will move on and find, sort of champions for the additional components like talent management. There would be probably a different champion for that. Research, there would be a different champion for that, whether it's Dr. Archibald or Sylvie, etc. So some of the different risks we have sort of highlighted as of today. So of course, there's always, what we call in the project managed world scope creep. So, as requirements continue to come in, that, we've got these 500 things we need to deliver by April 28th, so we could hand it over for assessment to, next thing you know, it's 550, 600, 700. So we need to make sure we have a good solid process in there to lock down as to what we can deliver within the required time frame. There's always some people, sometimes change of priorities come around, which, inevitably can lead to scope changes. We just have to make sure that we manage those effectively. There's always a shortage in resources. So, we're kicking off our development, of course, in the summertime. So vacations come up, which everybody needs to take a vacation. And then we're also in the recruitment process as well. So as, people come and go, will impact basically the people power we have available to deliver to the development and upcoming accreditation. So we definitely want to strive towards having the new application up and running, that can support the accreditation coming up in 2 years' time, roughly 2 years' time. Security risks. So, as we are dealing with personnel data, so we do have to make sure that our application is secured against, the most stringent of the requirements. So if we do have any sort of IMGs in the system, we do have to, who are from Europe, then of course we do have to adhere to not just PIPEDA, but also the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection requirements for Europe, which are extremely stringent. So we will be making sure that we adhere to all those. And then, of course, once our application is developed, where is it going to live? So hosting, which is, within UOttawa or by DFM. So more to come on that. So project outline. So as we mentioned, the main focus right now is education. So that is, our first major block, which is postgrad and undergrad. So, our two main T's, our director of postgrad, which is Dr. Seal, and our director of undergrad, which is Dr. Lena Shopoff. So, and once we've gotten through that, we've delivered both core and scheduling. Then we'll look to move down to the Director of Faculty Affairs and Development, which is right now Dr. Eric Woolthornton, who will look at the talent management component. And then Dr. Douglas Archibald, who's research, and then I guess it falls to me for finance at the end of the day. So lots of exciting things to come, and we're always taking feedback throughout each and every step. So everybody has the ability, everybody has a thought, everybody has some ideas, everybody has a wants and desires. So please do send them in. We encourage everybody to have a say what they'd like the future system to look, because as Femoral 1.0 has served the department admirably for the last 10 years, our goal is to have Femoral 2.0 serve the department just as long for the next 10 years. So we do want everybody's requirements to be heard, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, all requirements do have to be rationalized as to what is feasible and reasonable to implement. So we will have what we call a requirements review committee, which be, comprised of many different key portfolio managers. But when we look at education, basically the chairman of the board or the chairman of the committee for requirements and features that go into, say, the core will be Dr. Seal and Kim Rosen. They will basically say these are exactly what is needed at a bare minimum for this application for us to manage our residents effectively. These other requirements are nice to haves to do, and then these ones are fantastic, nice, want to have down the road. So more to come as we start to stand up our committees. We do start to put together. We're hoping to eventually have a SharePoint site where everybody can log in and see, where the requirements are, where theirs is on the list, what has been approved and reviewed. But early days, but that is coming. I am now, I believe, turning this over to Kendra, and she is going to discuss next steps.
Great, thanks, Jeff. So we've heard a lot about what the project will look like in the coming months, and you're probably wondering how you can get involved. So next Tuesday at 10 a.m., so same time, same place, we'll be having our first working group, and the session will focus on replacement of the existing learner's profile. So as Jeff was mentioning, that is what we will be calling our resident profile or portal going forward to include undergrads. So this will be a 1-hour session. It is open to anyone who wants to be a participant in the process, a stakeholder, as Jeff mentioned. So anyone is welcome. All input is welcome. But just to note that we will be focusing on that learner portal. So all other input will be noted down and will be kept and included later in the process. So we will be consolidating the info from this first session and sharing it out following the meeting for review for folks who did provide their input and for others who were unable to attend. So within this first session, which will kind of be the opening to the working groups, we'll be focusing on, as you can see on the slide, learner requirements, which will continue until further from the session until they're all gathered. We'll be discussing frequency of meetings just to include everyone's schedule and make sure that everyone who wants to be there is there or can have their input included. And then we'll be talking about future working group topics like the faculty requirements after we move on from the learners portal. So following this initial working group, further, more specific or narrower focused working groups will be established to figure out more in-depth feedback on certain features and will require a more significant time commitment. So just something to consider at the beginning, how involved you would like to be in the process. We have sent out the initial invitation to this, so it was in the chair notes on Friday, but we will be also later today circulating the invite again. So I would say to keep your eyes on your inboxes if you're interested in joining. Following that, we will be having these information sessions quarterly. So our next one will be roughly towards the end of September. So also keep an eye out for that if you're hoping to stay engaged and involved in the process.
And if I can, Kendra, maybe just real quick on that note. So we know that everyone's got such demanding schedules right now. And of course, we want users to be included on these. So if you ever can't attend one of these scheduled meetings, there's going to be emails at the end of here where you can always reach out to Kendra, Jeff, myself, and we can gather all that even via email. So you don't necessarily have to be at those working groups if you can't be. And then certainly when we get to the parts where we're testing features, we will make sure that everyone's kind of perspective is reviewed. So if it's a faculty member or a resident or an undergrad med student that needs to kind of test from their perspective, we'll get them involved too. That's it. Thanks.
Awesome. So if you are interested in being involved as a stakeholder in any part of the process, I would encourage you to scan the QR code on the slide. You can self-identify as someone who wants to be involved all throughout the length of the project and essentially be on our mailing list for more targeted opportunities to be involved in providing your input for the project. Great. And if you are interested in learning more or have feedback or have an idea or have a question or anything at all, please feel free to get a hold of either myself or Marissa or Jeff at the following emails. If you're not sure who to contact, please reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with the right person. As you can see our info here, and we can definitely circulate that after the meeting as well. Yeah, and finally, we are hoping to rename or maybe not rename the learner management portal, or learner management system. So whatever that will be. So currently called Femoral, but to be called potentially something else. So if you have an idea for what the new system could be named, please submit your idea at the QR code below. And we will be doing a shortlisting process towards the end of June once all the ideas are submitted, and then voting will commence following that to choose the name of the new platform. Great, and I think that wraps up the session. We are opening the floor now to questions. You can either unmute yourself or throw your questions in the chat, and we will answer them.
Yeah, I think we had a couple questions in the chat. So, but just before I get to those, as Kendra mentioned, we've been saying it since the beginning, Femoral 1.0, Femoral 2.0. You know what? It just doesn't sing. Well, we're going to have it's basically going to be our learner management system. We need to come up with something pithy, something catchy, something that maybe rhymes for the name of this new application. But it is your application. But what we're looking for is something to make it identifiable. So when somebody does mention it, everybody goes, "Oh yeah, I know what that is." Whereas right now, I think if you say femoral, people think the big vein in your leg. So we do want to make sure we cover that off, come up with something neat, because it will be around a little while. So, Dr. Seal.
And I just think before, as we start fishing for people to become involved, I think we have to be very clear. And I think we were talking about this a little bit previously, is that we have to be clear that what our ask is. I think Parisa sort of brought this up. One of the things is the ask about time. The other ask is about what are we actually talking about. And I think those of us who are involved in the department as much as we are do know what well, for the most part, not all of them, because I know sometimes I generally don't know what I'm talking about, but it's, what are we looking at? Like, I think, and there's quite a wide discrepancy amongst family doctors, especially teaching family doctors, about how much they know what this thing actually is. So the more we can say, rather than calling it and having it femoral and big, saying, something about information system related to your resident as clearly as we can define it. So once we fish people in and then we got a new name, then we just carry on with that. But I think in this fishing period, we have to be as really clear about what we're looking for and how we're fishing for volunteers.
That's a good question, Kendall. I'm not exactly sure why it was called femoral. I don't know if there was anybody around that's got that knowledge. Might have to go back into the archives and find an archivist or a librarian that was around back then. From Parisa's question, how much commitment? It is literally however much time you would love to devote to the project. As we mentioned, we are going to be extremely flexible of accepting your input, whether you can attend meetings or not. Just say, hey, you know what? I use this section every day, and if it could do this or that, please do submit your idea. And, we will acknowledge its receipt, its consideration. We do want to make sure that people that do submit their ideas, their thoughts, that we acknowledge that, thoughts and question received, considered, and what is the next step. So I see Parisa is now on screen. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. This is so exciting. It's always exciting when we get updating of our technology, because then we could tailor them, and it's perfect opportunity, at least for my purpose, because the part that I want to be definitely involved, it's the procedural skills e-fields, right? And I've just completed our nationally agreed upon assessment tools for the 4 of the core procedural skills in women's health. And as you know, our current procedural skills e-field notes are very general. And so if I could know what are the sessions where you're going to be working on specifically procedures, e-field note, then I'd be delighted to attend and help. Because I've put that on to Kendall Noel. We had a great meeting, and then he asked for my ask, but unless I know how far my ask can go to Ed or to Kendall, I wouldn't know the capacity for you guys to come back, as you said, your limitations. So I would love to be part of just those meetings. That would be fabulous.
Sure. Yeah, I think what we're going to do is, as we outline, like the first really kick off to the working groups is we'll accept, feedback on core. And then I think then there'll be a heavy sort of focus on the learner database, moving on to the preceptor database, and then e-field notes probably third, because what we want to also make sure is that right now, when you go, if you're, say, a faculty member, you go into a resident database, neither one of them talk to one another. So if we say, okay, well, this resident or has this preceptor as their name, and you click on it, yes, you put the preceptor's name into the resident's, portal, and then they change, well, then you got to go update the resident portal. Then you have to log into the preceptor portal and change it there because they don't talk. We're going to make sure they talk. So if one changes in there that's related to a field and another one, it automatically updates them across the board. So, and then of course, field notes. And when we get to that, we'll definitely include you, Parisa, because you've always got some fantastic ideas. And, with our 100, I don't know what we're up to, 104 skills that everybody has to master. So, and Seabass. All right. I like Seabass. Do they have a logo? Is it a fish logo? I don't know, Doug, do you know if it's a fish logo for Seabass? We got to come up with a good logo and a good name.
On that note, Dr. Priest, I think what you've said right there is exactly what we're kind of looking for from members that are interested. Like, tell us what part of this new vision you'd like to be a part of. We kind of, like Jeff said at the beginning of the session, we have a good foundation because Femoral 1.0 exists. So in terms of addressing kind of our essential administrative needs and for tracking residents or faculty members kind of trajectory throughout our department, we have those kind of basic requirements already established. And then when we get to kind of having another look at e-field notes or SUs, that will be when we're looking for really targeted information. We'll have a better idea of time commitments that would be required.
All right. Any other questions, comments? I know for sure, I think we definitely want to hear from Dr. Liddy, our chair, who's, at the end of the day is, well, Dr. Seal is our champion. She's, Zeus. So she's, the god of gods, and it's going to, saying, let's make this go. After long last,
right.
We're finally underway.
Maybe I'll just jump in now. So thanks. Good morning, everybody. And thank you, team, for a really nice overview. It's exciting that we're at this stage. As Jeff said, certainly when I came in, and I have no idea why Femoral is called Femoral, and I'm probably the one person why we need to change the name, because I'm like, what the heck is this and what does it do? So looking for, again, and even an acronym, I'm kind of like, let's just call it what it is so it's obvious. So I would love to get suggestions. And then I think just to emphasize that when I first started, I remember meeting with Ed and the team, and really, as you said, going into the detail of administratively, how are things working? What are the pain points? And this kept coming up. We did the site visits, so with all of the, especially in terms of trying to link the data. And so I just think that the fact that we're now here is amazing. And we are putting in a significant investment this year from the department. So I think $300,000 to start. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah.
So big investment in order to get this done. And as I said, this is a foundation investment in our education pillar. So just the more that you can contribute as users of it, the better, because you'll have a better product. And really, this is for all of you to be able to use, and I think have a little bit more joy in work, a little bit more efficient, and more time on your hands. So it's kind of contributing on the development piece is going to end up being a really positive experience at the end. So talk to your colleagues too. All of you are from different units, spread the word, do get involved. And we are, looking to be able to protect some time for people who want to be on core working groups. And, this is not intended to be the 6 o'clock meeting on Friday to now, do this. This is incorporated into, I think, into your workday. So we will be supporting those activities. So really excited, and also welcome to all of our new team members. It's great to meet everybody. So thanks very much.
I'll just, thanks, Claire. Just to address one of the things that Kendall has mentioned, Dr. Noel. So the slide during the presentation sort of highlighted the main team members. Those are kind of the doers. However, the team is exactly as you're kind of mentioning. The team is everybody. Users will always be considered primarily. We'll always look for making sure that we take in all the feedback they have. They are critical in our user testing. And of course, as Natalia and the team sort of sit in the same area as the users, the core users, the Chandras and not the Andreas, but Stefan and Kim Beaubien, who use it quite heavily. They'll always be, hey, come here, take a look at this. So we don't want to underestimate the feedback that the users will have. Then, of course, whenever we have faculty members, when it gets to a point where they're developing, say, the what do we call it? The faculty portal, we will always be including faculty members in its look, design, touch, feel, usability. So we're always big in human-computer interface design. So we'll always be using and taking the feedback primarily from our user base. So, but yes, thanks for the concern. So I unfortunately do have to drop off. I have to run an individual to a doctor's appointment for 11:15, but I'm going to let everybody else chat amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
But thanks everybody for your time. So
thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer any other questions if there are. I think I'll be catching up on the comments, maybe post meeting too, but I do think Dr. Noel, you had a good point there about the Red Book, especially since I've been hearing, are we moving to a 3-year program? All those things we want to kind of think about up front too. So we're capturing any of those kinds of pieces of information up front. Any other questions at this time? And we can all take a kind of our own pause and reflect on this offline too. And like we said, any other questions or concerns that come up throughout this whole project, please feel free to forward to our attention, because this is ultimately a department tool that we all are going to be building together. So. Okay. Well,
I was just going to say that. Oh, sorry, Sylvie, go ahead. I didn't see that your hand.
Well, I was just wondering, is the new tool, is it going to be available for the assessment in French also, or is it in English only?
No, that is part of what we're going to be implementing throughout. I know the current Femoral is bilingual in some parts of it, but yeah, we're going to be doing that up front to make sure that as each one, it's just a matter of you choosing if you want to log in as an English user or a French user, and then you get all the same information no matter what. So yeah.
I was just going to quickly encourage all my fellow preceptors here, and certainly Courtney, anybody who touches the computer for anything, just whenever you come across anything that irritates you or makes you want to, as they showed you on their second slide, I think that makes you want to pull your hair out, please document that and send that along, because those are the types of things you don't think about until you start using them. Like, I mean, if you think about it in the abstract, you'll probably forget it. But once you're using it, anything that seems to be ridiculous or time heavy or like could be done more easily or, blah, 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 more frictionless, as is the IT term, I guess, that's what we want to know. So please forward that in an ongoing fashion.
Yeah, and I think I see a hand from Courtney.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's definitely a lot of things, and I kind of want to say everything. It's very frustrating that's not an online version, but I think part of that will come out when we start to like I haven't seen or used this new development for Femoral. So I'm sure there's going to be some day in the near future where we get to go onto this new user face and practice. Okay, well, if I were to submit an e-field note, what would that look like? If I was going to submit a receipt and request a document or anything like that, it will come from actually using the interface and seeing how easy or difficult it is to get information that you need. And you can't give feedback on that until you see the platform and how it's designed. So I have a lot of faith in whoever's doing the graphic design and things like that for our new system. But a lot of it will just be, you have to see it and practice it to know, okay, where are the pitfalls in this? But I can give things that, like, as a list of things I'd like as an online access, like things you guys already have in your list, like can we request time off online, and how can we ensure that there's been receipt of that request? How do we submit a receipt, or just information on what sort of things can we submit under certain funding and bursaries, and how do we get that done in an online fashion so poor Kim doesn't have to field all of our emails and say, oh yeah, this works and this doesn't. So those are just some things that come up to the top of my head.
Yeah, all important. And that specific examples about like reimbursements, that touches on a couple of different aspects, right? Like, so Kim might be pulling that from our finance team, which is why they're at the table here today too. So we all kind of need to think about what the problem is from your perspective, but who else does that touch within the department to get you that answer, so it can all just be available in one place, in a secure fashion too.
And get everything off of Brightspace.
Yeah, that's the only. I know I've heard that there's some frustrations. I know that with 145 and Brightspace, those particular applications are not DFM tools. So when it comes to using those to access certain curriculum, or for evaluations that are more kind of faculty of medicine managed, yeah, we'll definitely have to see what kind of links we can do there to improve efficiencies.
I think it's also worthy of mentioning that so this process isn't just like a one and done thing, right? So it's not that we're just going to hand you guys a tool and say, hey, this is a new shiny thing, this is awesome, you'll love it, and then we'll disappear into the night, right? Like, this is going to be an active dialogue between us and you guys, and feedback is going to be really baked into this process.
Thanks, Natalia. Yes, Parisa?
Yeah, so I see Chandra is here. Is there a way that the new system also reduces Chandra's workload, again, from the perspective of, like when I'm doing a SIPR, she has to tell me how many days the resident has taken off, or, like there's a lot of workload that comes from that. Like, can we have, again, these systems speak, so that when my SIPR requests come, I just press the button and a lot of the data has been generated instead of Chandra and Natalie prepare that. That would be also fabulous.
Yep. Yeah, that is on our radar, and we'll certainly from the very beginning of what information we're capturing on residents to this, when we get to the scheduling modules or the leaves. We want that part of all the reporting features that somewhat already exist in Femoral 1.0, but yeah, there's certainly lots of gaps that could be addressed in the newer version. So.
Just Marissa,
yes,
I would just want to hope that I guess some of us have portfolios within the department where we're sort of akin to ensuring that the department meets whatever Red Book requirements and the whole like. And I hear some of the things that we are responsible for being discussed as improvements that are going to be done to Femoral. I'm hoping that, and it's probably maybe a given, but that those people that have portfolios that are responsible for these various things will be actively involved in any revamping to make sure that, one, it fits with whatever the college is sort of requiring, and two, maybe with the vision that those people currently holding the job at least have in mind, so that they're part of the discussion and not like for things that, potentially, Femoral might allow us to generate automatic curriculum maps, that would fall under Denise's domain of curriculum director. And would be nice to make sure that she's part of any discussions that, you know, someone starts saying, oh yeah, we want curriculum maps to be part of the new Femoral, that they're speaking to her, you know. SIPRs sort of falls under my domain, and I want to make, like, I had started to do some work, but happy to hear that it's, the automation has really caught fire. And, you know, the idea to press one button and you get it drawn out, but I'm hoping that I'll be part of some of the discussions to see what that will look like. And not just as a, you know, any random stakeholder, but, you know, a key, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Somewhere under Zeus, but some under Zeus and under Ed's title, but anyhow, you get the idea.
Right. Yep, that's, yeah. I think there'll be different levels of engagement too, right? Because we at the very first step, we have to replace what exists currently, because it is all being used by our administrative staff. And then when we get to the things like a SIPRs or the e-field notes that have a lot more different perspectives, it's then just the admins kind of entering information, then yeah, absolutely, we need to make sure we've kind of informally have highlighted who we are. And then that's also why we've got Kim and Lena and Ed as part of those committees too, to make sure that we are, if they're saying, no, did you run this by Dr. Noel? Because maybe that wasn't on my radar, that, yeah, that we're all of us are contributing. So
I'm just wondering, then, should people like me put on hold any work on these topics? Because, you know, there's going to be maybe some realities of computer programming that are going to come to play, and that, you know, would you recommend that? Or?
To put on hold, that's a tricky one, I think, for me to answer at this point in the game, just because I know this is kind of a very long-term project that will be iterative, and we've got to try to meet that core one-to-one replacement first. I think that's part of why we want to have this as a quarterly kind of update, so you can see where we are on the overall project of it. To say, okay, now we're getting closer to the SIPRs component. Yes, Dr. Ludi, sorry.
Oh, yeah, just to jump in on that, Kendall. So great comments. And I think your question is good. And I think, though, to reiterate what Marissa's saying, what the activity is really for the first year, and the aim for, you know, July 1st, 2023 is to replace the current system. So then there will be part of it, though, as Jeff and Marissa had said, there's going to be some, I guess, staging so that then we can take it to the next level. So definitely it is an expectation from my part that directors, such as yourself, director of curriculum, director of evaluation, et cetera, that the unit directors will be you know, invited and then should accept the invites to the meeting. So I don't think we'll miss anybody. And if anything, I guess part of it is to hear, like, well, how do we ensure that, you know, we can communicate and I guess get the right timing for the meetings? What do you need as a director to, you know, be able to commit? Let's say you're going to come in for 4 sessions or whatever it might be, you know, for focused work on that. How far in advance do you need to have that scheduled? You know, should we just map out, I think as part of the project charter, you know, that could all be mapped out and maybe do save the dates and sort of ensure that we've got the right people at the table, especially as you said, so that this is a development of a system for you. And so the team absolutely needs to, you know, learn about what the issues are and then where the wish list is. So again, just maybe we can do some thinking and you can, you know, make some suggestions in terms of how this group can actually ensure that we, you know, that you're able to essentially attend the sessions.
Thank you.
In terms of whatever development you're doing right now, I would think if you've got some things in mind, then you're thinking, is this going to, you know, should I stop doing work? My gut is no, don't stop the things that you're doing. But if you're wondering if it's an overlap, then I would suggest that you probably have a one-on-one with Marissa and Jeff about whatever the specific project is or development work that you're doing on your side, on the evaluation side.
And if there's any last minute questions, I know we're kind of 2 minutes over time, but I'm happy to stay on if anyone else has any other questions, or like we said, we can keep the conversation going offline as well. So I don't see any more hands, so I think we can end it here. But thank you again. This is just like I said, the first of many, I'm sure, that we will be touching base on this project. So we'll probably see this group again in September for a project status update. But again,